right, folks, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today, I've got some really heavy news to share with you, and I want to take a moment to talk about a story that's hit close to home for many people in the Southbridge area. So let's dive into this. Sometimes in life, we face losses that are just heartbreaking, and that's exactly what's happened here. A man named Ben Lepage is dealing with the devastating loss of his late father's extensive vintage car collection, which was destroyed in a fire in Southbridge. Now, this isn't just about cars, it's about memories, a legacy, and a family history that's been lost in flames. First things first, let's get the facts straight. The fire occurred near the Rakaia River on Wednesday, and it was a pretty intense blaze. According to Fire and Emergency, the fire was likely started by forestry burn piles. Now that's interesting because it's not just about the fire itself, but also the context in which it happened. The fire was tackled by a team of 11 ground crews and 2 helicopters, which speaks volumes about how serious this was. But despite all that effort, the fire managed to tear through 2 large sheds on Ben Lepage's family property. These sheds were home to his father's beloved vintage car collection, car parts, and even a tractor. Nick Lepage was a car aficionado from a young age. That's a term I love, right? A car aficionado, it means he had a deep passion for cars, and that passion was evident in the collection he amassed over the years. Now, the loss of these cars is a personal tragedy for Ben and his family, but he's relieved that no one was hurt in the fire. But it's important to remember that behind every car, every part, and every piece of machinery is a story. These weren't just cars, they were a part of Nick's life, his legacy. And now those stories are gone. What exactly was lost? Well, the fire destroyed a significant portion of the collection. Most of the cars that were destroyed were Mark II Ford Cortinas from the late 1960s, as well as a 1962 Massey Ferguson tractor. Now, these are not just any cars, they're vintage, they're classic, and they hold a special place in the hearts of car enthusiasts, but also about 50 cars worth of parts. That's a lot of parts, and when you think about the effort that goes into restoring and maintaining these cars, it's clear that this was a significant investment of time, money, and love. Ben told me that the firefighters said the fire took hold at speed. He mentioned that with the strong winds on Wednesday, once the fire took hold, it was minutes before the sheds were engulfed in flames. That's just heartbreaking to think about. You can imagine the panic, the chaos, and the helplessness that must have come with watching your father's legacy go up in smoke. There were contractors harvesting trees on the property, and they weren't hurt, and their gear wasn't damaged. Now, that's a real positive in the midst of all the tragedy. He said, you could always get more stuff, but the fact that no one was hurt was a real positive. People cannot. And in the face of such a devastating loss, it's easy to focus on the things that are gone, but it's important to remember the people who are still here. One of his father's first cars, purchased when he was about 19 years old, was among those that went up in flames. That's a really poignant detail. It's a reminder that these cars were not just possessions, they were milestones in his father's life. They were part of his journey, his dreams, and his story, almost to the day of the fire 13 years ago. Their mother died a decade later on the same day. That's a really heavy legacy to carry, but they've done so with strength and determination. The fire investigators are expected to arrive later today to look into the cause and origin of the fire. The fire was likely started by forestry burn piles, but I'm sure they'll need to do a thorough investigation to confirm that. Fire and Emergency is urging people to avoid lighting any fires in Canterbury today and to check their burn piles ahead of further windy conditions. High winds are forecast again today, and they want people to make sure that any existing burn piles are fully extinguished. What can we take away from this story? Well, first and foremost, it's a reminder of the importance of fire safety, especially in areas with dry conditions and strong winds. It's also a reminder of the value of preserving our legacies, whether it's through our collections, our memories, or our stories. It's a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. Ben and his family have faced a lot of challenges, and yet they've continued to carry on. They've taken over the farm, they've dealt with the loss of their parents, and now they're dealing with the loss of their father's car collection. And yet they're still standing. As we wrap this up, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the loss that Ben and his family have experienced. It's a loss that's felt deeply, but it's also a story that's worth sharing. Because sometimes the stories that remind us of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing what we have are the ones that resonate the most, to preserve the things that matter most, and to be grateful for the moments we have. Because life is precious, and sometimes it's the things we take for granted that are the ones we lose the most. I'd love to hear them. And if you know of anyone who might be affected by this story, please reach out and offer your support, because in times of tragedy, it's the support of others that can make all the difference. Stay safe, stay strong, and take care of the people you love, because they're the ones who matter most.